So, Curly, thank you so much for joining us today. Would you mind doing a quick intro for the party people?
Sure, yeah. So welcome in. If you guys don't know me, I'm Curly. I am a former ballet dancer turned variety streamer because I stopped doing ballet for 30 years and then I switched to streaming instead of doing ballet. But through that entire career of being a ballet dancer, I've also been studying. My degree is in applied mathematics with a concentration in differential equations and optimization. Is my master's degree in science. And then I have been in the background, been a quantitative analyst and data scientist for the last 8 years. I've worked in a variety of fields from finance to tech. And I've done quite a lot of jobs. A lot of my job right now entails using data science techniques and statistics to be able to identify risks and measure their magnitudes from a variety of different lenses.
Oh,
So,
that's really
yes.
cool. And really,
Yeah.
and just like a really varied journey too. So, yeah, like let's get into it. When
Yeah.
did you know that you were in like because this is something that a lot of people struggle with, especially with the math side of things. When
Mhm.
did you know that math for you is a passion?
10th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade. There's been a journey. Like, it wasn't just like, "Yes, this is math. This is the only thing I like." No. So when I was in middle school, um, I've always been a very, very sensitive child. When I was a kid, I really excelled in math. But when I was in middle school, my teachers saw that whenever I got frustrated, I would cry, as kids do when they're learning something brand new. And it was one of those situations where it's just like, give them time to learn before you just make assumptions. So they thought that I was like struggling with it. So they tried to move me down. And they did move me down to a lower level math, which I was excessively bored with. And I even took a test showing that I should have gone into the next level, but they refused to move me because they just didn't want me to struggle. And so like but I think a lot of people who have a knack for mathematics and stuff like this, when you are so excited about learning something new, that's exactly when you're going to push forward and you're going to excel in something that you want to do when you're actually striving and you're trying to struggle a little bit. Struggle is always a good thing in my book. So they didn't want me to do that. So middle school kind of was like a real big bust for me, which I feel like a lot of people experienced. Um, but then as soon as I got into high school, I had a teacher who saw that I had a really big knack for picking up mathematics real quickly. And she actually pushed me, and I took for the rest of my career in high school, I took two math courses a semester.
Wow.
So I decided to go doing my or math courses a year, not a semester. I apologize. So then I was like, when I went to school, I was like, yeah, I'm going in for math because I wanted to see how I can take this beautiful language and this beautiful thing that's like puzzly and fun and stuff and turn it into how can I take this and help and make a difference with math. And there's so much that I can do, and I've loved it. I did have like a short stint between college and grad school where I was like, you know what, maybe I should do something like mechanical engineering, but then I went right back to math.
I think it's incredibly like it speaks to your character to imagine it immediately be like, well, what can I use math for to apply it like as this beautiful language, right? Because I feel like that's not usually
Yeah.
the thought process. Usually it's like, oh, I just have to do this. I have to go through this and do
Right.
this course. And what gave you that perspective? Because like if you like, I feel like that is a piece of advice that would be so beneficial for so many people. Like, how did you just innately see like the incredible value to math?
So I that's a such a good question. I think that for me, I just saw it as a puzzle, and I love puzzles. I love the enjoyment of puzzles. I love the enjoyment of figuring things out, like tinkering with it to be able to get it to the next level. So I was just like, well, how can I do this but all the time? And I think a lot of people get really scared of math because like you said, they see it and they're like, "Oh, I need to just get through this." But at the same time, you don't realize how wonderful it is because of the fact that it's not being highlighted as well as it could be. It's not being taught the way that it should be. It's not being taught of like, people sit there and they're just like, oh my gosh, I never use algebra ever. And I look at it, I'm like, no, you're using it every single day of your life. If you're getting into a car, like you're understanding the difference, the miles per hour and all these different things. If you are creating directions just to go to the store, you're using geometry to find the shortest direction in order to get there. Like you're using math. You're just not realizing it because we haven't been taught how it is being manipulated through the rest of the world. We're taught in this concrete structure of books instead of understanding the arts and the beauty behind it. And so I think that for me, like I've always had that dual brain because of math and science that I love, that I always tried to find the creativity in it that nobody saw. And I remember seeing it a lot when I learned about things oh my gosh, what are they called? Why can I don't want fractals? Yes, fractals. And like just like how they all work together and like how that puzzle pieces move within them. And so I think there's like just like a lot of different areas in which math is just so unseen for its art and its beauty that I really love. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. Do you think your background and like almost co-journey with ballet and the art of ballet also helped kind of like help you see the art in math and vice versa? Do you see like that
Oh, one
trajectory
million
together?
percent. 1,000,000%. Because I always liked physics and I loved, chemistry and stuff like that, that also include a lot of mathematics and stuff, and that there is within ballet. I was talking to actually Tofu about this offline, about how there's so much physics within ballet and how it all works and how it all moves that people don't realize it, and then at the same time, I think that within the same that realm, we see how much as we're going through that this became a very common theme when I was talking to Tofu as well, that there's so many different ways that you can look at math and you can look at sciences, that perception is really key, especially within mathematics, that like one small change and one small adjustment or one pivot into a completely separate dimension or a separate look into something is really going to influence how your end result is going to look within any sort of context within mathematics, especially. I think you can see that a lot within any sort of modeling or any sort of differential equations. Like if you tune or you change something so slightly with your parameters, you're going to end up with a completely different result. In fact, there's an entire study of mathematics talking about that called chaos theory. I'm sure people have heard about it, but like it's so fascinating and it's so cool. So yeah, I think that like math in some sort of way has really, like, my love for arts and stuff like that has really also contributed to that because it makes you curious about what is this difference and what is this going to be. So yeah, I think so personally.
It's
It
like
was
the
a
way
very long-winded response of saying yes.
No, no, I think that's a great response. It kinda is like when you're doing the ballet dance, depending on what your next movement is, will change the outcome entirely, which is the same in the mathematical equation as well. And it's just what I
Yeah.
think is incredible about you, Curly, is that you've kind of tied together the art and the science, which we always advocate that you can't have one without the other. And you're like, look, here I've
Yeah.
successfully merged the two together. And I think that is just so heckin' cool to be able to see. Uh,
You.
when you're finishing high school, right? You're a mathematically expert, and you start in undergrad. Where
Yeah.
where like what where did you go with respect to picking what math courses and what major to do where you still wanted to be in math? Like how did you end up deciding what math caught your fancy then? Because it's almost like a different world there of what you can use it for. Like so how did you take all
Mhm.
this possibility and distill it into what you were interested in?
So within the mathematics field, I will say that most people kind of divide it into two subjects within study for school. They do it as the pure mathematics, which is things that you can think about like proofs and theoretical math. And then there's the applied mathematics, which I instantaneously gravitated to because I hate proofs. I hate proofs so much. They are literally the worst. Like, I understand their purpose, I understand that they're important, but I hate proofs. I hate proving things. I'm sorry, but, like, it makes sense. Like, I get it, but sometimes the convoluted logic that goes into how proofs are done, like, yes, you can talk about it's very creative, it's really pretty, blah, 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 but I hate it. Like, I don't understand half the time how they get some things into there. I'm always like, "What?" When I read proofs, I'm like, "How? How did you come up with this random item that you just shoved in there?" And I know it's just practice, and you can talk about that all the time, but it's just like one of those situations where I was just like, "This is not fun to me." What I enjoyed was being able to explain things and being able to compute things within mathematics. Which is really kind of more towards the applied realm of like, how can I take this? How can I explain the world within numbers and equations? And that's the beauty of math. That's what I love about math. And so it's like there's a couple courses that I will say like are my absolute favorites when I was taking them in graduate school and undergraduate school was ordinary differential equations, and mathematical modeling, which kind of all tie together a little bit. I mean, partial differential equations is a little bit different, but I love them all because it's like I loved the fact that you could sit there and you could take something and then you would be able to explain how or model something that could potentially occur using formulas. When I was in that kind of in between time between graduate school and and finishing college, I took and I was taking classes thinking I was going to go to become a mechanical engineer. I was taking an ODE class, ordinary differential equation class, and I was sitting there and we had to do a assignment at the end where we actually modeled something ourselves, and I got to model the zombie apocalypse, and it was literally the most fun I've ever had.
So for some of
And it's just like
us,
it's things like that that's just like awesome.
so currently, I haven't gone past Calc 2. So would you mind
Okay,
defining
fair.
for us, like when you say like applied mathematics as like you're going into a field, if you're a student and you're trying to look at those two different fields, what exactly like is applied mathematics? Like you're simulating things, but what kind of career can it lead you by being in that kind of mathematical field? And then
Sure.
what is a differential equation for some folks out there, and what makes it ordinary as one of your classes? What
What?
makes it non-ordinary?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Actually, let me make sure I like get this definition correctly because I probably will mess this up if I don't say it correctly. But okay, yeah, this is helpful. So all right. Applied mathematics is generally what you think about things like forecasting, statistics, um data science. These are all forms of applied mathematics, operational analysis, and these kind of things, decision analysis. These are all stemming from mathematics as well as things, studies of like computer science, but you can get a lot of that from a math degree as well. So we all know what statistics are, I hope, maybe, kind of, I think. Statistics being the study of like understanding and basically like predicting things, or trying to find the likelihood of things occurring within a given population or given parameters. And then forecasting and machine learning and data science, these are all things that we have talked about we probably hear about all the time. You'll hear about things like like forecasting the weather, forecasting just like stocks and stuff like that, which is not possible, by the way. uh and like a whole bunch of other areas, but there's so many different ways. There's beauty of what math can do is it's so versatile, and a math degree is extremely versatile, that there's such a need for it that it's hard to even pinpoint what you want to do. So there's even like if you wanted to, there's even actuarial science, which is a big degree in mathematics as well, which actually is the study in like kind of like the insurance insurance businesses and stuff like that, where you can actually predict things like mortality and how much collision damages are, and all these kind of equations as well. There's like so much you can do in math. That's
So
why math is so cool.
the zombie
There's like so
apocalypse.
much. Basically. Basically, actually my thesis was a study on predicting life, like how long people were going to live. So that was fun. But no, so like in terms of like mathematics and like anybody who wants to do a math career, there's so many different ways that you could go into it. There's so many different areas that you can go. There's a lot of government jobs if you want to do that. There's a lot in tech, a lot in healthcare and stuff that people are always looking for. I think that math is such a versatile degree, and it's so great. And I personally love it. I'm very happy that I decided to do it,
Thank you
because
for
there's a
that
lot you can do with
explanation.
it.
I think that really highlights the gambit of what you can do with a math degree. Like, because as you were saying it too, of like all the predictive stuff, it was like, wait a minute, it does in fact seem like it's almost everything. And then giving those
Yeah,
concrete examples, like, yeah, no, it really is all these different fields that you can go into. And I see like the
it
allure now
encompasses a
too
lot.
of the applied field of like you can do all these things. Um,
Yes.
so when this
Yes.
opened up to you, like, and you were like in applied mathematics to get your degree, how did you? I know you said there was a smidge of time where you were like, oh, I don't know if I want to go into this, continue on this zone, like maybe go into like an engineering side of
Yeah.
thing. But like, how did you end
Yeah.
up deciding where to, I guess, further specialize for your master's, given how many opportunities opened up to you?
Yeah, I can answer that easily. So when I kind of a little bit of a backstory and kind of like a little bit of an awkward journey. For those who don't know, I'm 36. Uh, and people are always shocked when I say that, but I'm 36. And I graduated from college in 2011, which is post a financial crisis. So when I got out of college, there was still a lot of issues with the hiring market and being able to actually find a career. It was the peak time of, that nice little catchphrase of, first time hires or brand new hires needed to come in with 2 years of experience. Like, and I just didn't have that experience and nobody was hiring. So it's just kind of one of those, that was where the world was, the market was. And so I did actually end up getting a job. I ended up kind of like floating around, like, okay, I was kind of banking on this job. Now what do I do? And so that's when I decided, you know what? I'm going to actually go back to school, get my master's degree. It's going to make me look better. Plus, then this actually can really help me. And I will tell you, I think that there is something about getting a master's degree, especially in tech fields and in sciences and stuff like that. And, honestly, I can say the same about PhDs, where you really start to nail into the subjects that you want to learn and the subjects that you're fascinated in. So it kind of like leads into your question about like why what I decided to focus in. So my college, when I came in, they kind of gave us a couple of different paths for their applied math field. One was a little bit more towards that actuarial science side, and one was towards like differential equations and optimization. Differential equations and optimization was always something that I loved. Oh, and I never answered your differential equations course class. I will talk about that in a minute. But differential equations is always something that I loved because of the fact that what it basically is you take a you create like kind of a function that happens that's based off of one variable, that kind of controls exactly how it basically controls and explains a lot of how things work. It's been a while since I've done them, but it's cool because ODE, or ordinary differential equations, relies on one variable, whereas partial differential equations relies on multiple variables. So partial differential equations you'll see a lot used in like things like physics and stuff like that, because of the fact that there's so many different variables that are being utilized. And so like those are the kind of the two differences between the types of differential equations that you'll typically see. There's some variations, and people will argue with me probably that that's not the only types, but for simplicity's sake, those are the types that you can think about. But those are something that I've always said liked, because of the fact that with differential equations, basically it's measuring the changes within things based off of different areas, because you're taking like a derivative based based off of other equations that are happening. And so it's kind of like your understand. And for those who don't know what a derivative is, it's basically a measure of change in layman's terms. So like that basically is like you're understanding the changes that occur within society, within the world, within like the scenario that you're putting yourself into. And I'm really simplifying it right now. Like it's very much more complicated. It's not like just like that easy, but like and so I really loved that because you could see the minute changes and kind of some of the things that I was talking about earlier about how it's so interesting how much there is little nuances in the world and how it all works, and things like ODEs and PDEs really pick up on that, and like understanding how everything moves and how everything changes and how scenarios work amongst themselves. And so that's what I really, really, really love. And I liked that information. I will tell you that over my time in school, and like I unfortunately, as in my career, I haven't used ODEs and PDEs, which makes me sad. But I have really grown to love statistics from my actual career.
It's really cool, like, how you I mean, you explained it in the sense of, like, it's giving you this other kind of information. It seems like you can apply it to pretty much anything, right? When you're taking the
Yeah.
derivatives and, like, in these multi-variable equations, you can throw in more and more information and, I guess, like, build out that zombie apocalypse, right, with all the variables that
Yep.
are coming in. So, how did you pick
Which is such a cool thing.
No, it
I love the zombie apocalypse equations. P.S. We will die.
that
That's the end result for those who wanted to
that's what I
know.
was gonna ask.
Cliffhanger.
It's like, are we gonna make it? Like, no, we're not
No,
gonna make it.
no, like plain and simple. Like, there's actually research papers. And I love reading research papers because I love when they are either like really catty or they are sitting there and they're funny. And I love the fact that all of the research papers for like the zombie apocalypse are just hilarious. And people are like trying different scenarios based off of movie scenarios and like different instances and stuff. I will tell you that I did not test the fast running zombies. I only tested slow running zombies. But it would be interesting to see what the changes are now that people like are constantly morphing how zombies look. And I also did not do the zombies from The Last of Us. So like I don't know. But I will tell you that normal slow zombies in various scenarios, we will not survive.
It's- maybe I'm making an assumption here, but I feel like the fast ones might be even worse.
I think so too. I literally thought that as well. I was like, I think those fast ones will be like way worse. We're gonna be exterminated.
So, a naive question for you, Curly. So, like in biology, when you go in for a master's or a doctorate, you kind of have that research question in mind of what you wanted to study, and there's like a biological phenomena that you're looking after. In
Yeah.
mathematics, how does one choose a thesis? Like, is it that you're choosing a research lab? Like, how does that whole system work?
So I don't have my PhD, so I don't know from the PhD side of it. I can only talk from like the master's degree side of it. For my master's program, we were required to do a thesis, and that is not true for all master's programs, by the way. Like some master's programs do not actually require you to do any sort of research project. However, for mine, they really wanted us to be able to do that. So what I did was what we had to do is basically we had to kind of like talk to professors and see which ones that needed help because we needed like faculty help to be able to find us one. So I ended up working with a professor who did a lot of actuarial science stuff because not a lot of professors were doing research, and so I had a hard time finding somebody. But I did find somebody eventually, and I did a project based off of longevity derivatives. What is that? I'll tell you. Uh, within the insurance industry, like within life insurance, we have a lot of people who, like basically people have something called longevity risk. So if I have a life insurance policy and I'm paying out, or if I have like an insurance policy where I'm paying out as people are living and stuff like that for like retirement or whatever, and we expect them to live to a certain rate due to mortality based off of mortality models and all these other things that are happening, and the factors that like they ask you when you are actually doing these things. and they're setting up like your insurance policies and stuff like that for retirement, there is that fear of like if they live longer, the insurance company is going to have to keep paying for them. So, how do they hedge that risk and how do they prevent that risk from continuing to occur? So, my job was to determine if people live way past their prime, how do we create some sort of tool or I guess item? I don't like derivative is such like a hard word to actually say. And I'm not talking about derivatives like I was talking about with differential equations. I'm talking about derivatives as in like a financial product
Okay.
derivatives that actually hedges the risk for potentially what's going on in like to prevent the people from having to lose too much money when people live longer. So basically I was betting on death and that took me a long time to wrap my head around and I did not like that part.
So when you were picking when you were picking this thesis, it's like you have just kind of the possibility of finding a professor and seeing if they're available, and then kind of just whatever. Did you at least get to help design part of
Yeah.
it, or was it just like here, this is
Yes.
what I want? Okay, cool, 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 cool.
Yes.
Nice.
Well, I designed it in terms of like she came up with the idea.
Hmm.
I designed the execution and a lot of the other stuff. And so a lot of the research was mine and like how I did it and all of that. So like there was a lot of work being done from both sides of it,
Hmm.
where it's like part of what I was doing was also helping with her research a little bit heavier. Um had I stayed in school and actually continued with the project, I would have been able to publish the paper because we didn't test its like actual we tested some of its legitimacy, but we wanted to do more real world application to be able to see whether or not it would actually work I like in the real world. And that would have been able to push us over the edge to be able to publish it. But like I got really busy
So
with like
even
post school stuff.
math papers don't end necessarily at the theoretical level. You have to do some kind of maybe real world testing on the model that you've designed.
Yeah, especially depending on like the type of things that we do. They love to have the ability to show actually the application of it and not just the theoretical. There's definitely theories, like there's definitely a lot, but most people don't take a lot of stride in theories of it themselves unless it's like a devoted theory with a proof kind of thing. Like that paper is going to be a completely different level whereas within applied if you have something that you are testing and you are designing and you are creating, they want to see the application of that within the space. Otherwise, like what's the point? Like you've done something, you've created something, but does it work? We don't really know.
Gotcha. So
So
it's very
yeah,
much like
so
on the
it within
biological side of things. Like I found a gene, but until you prove it, like in an organism, I don't know why I care.
exactly.
I see.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
this seems again like a very complicated project. How did you decide what variables need to be included, and how do you collect the like? Did you have to collect the variable
Yeah.
information yourself too? Like how do you how does that collection process happen? And does that can you take peel back some of the curtains for us, Curly? How does this
Oh
work?
my god. For that specific thesis, it's been a very, very long time since I've actually looked at that paper. And I will tell you, like, looking back, I feel like that was not some of my best work. But I think in the case of that, a lot of it was using time series analysis to be able to do predictions from that lens, as well as bringing in bringing in mortality models from the Society of Actuaries. So, for those who don't know, Society of Actuaries is a place where you can actually get a certification, and they hire a lot of other people to be able to create these models that actually help with predictions of life and everything like that. And so that was data that we ended up using. But on top of that, it was also kind of like there was also like that time series analysis that we ended up doing. So if you guys don't know what ARMA is, it's like it's a way of being able to predict how something will go over time, which is very different. Time series analysis is extremely different from like just your standard y equals mx plus b kind of thing. It's got because of the fact that there's like variable ratings that happen within as we move through time and stuff, and you're trying to predict things based off of a timestamp. You're going to have different way of doing that kind of calculation rather than just doing something like like a simple, not that this is simple, but a simple linear model, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I don't know if
absolutely.
any of this is making sense. I feel like I'm just, like, talking right now, and I have
No,
no
no,
idea if I'm
I'm just sitting in awe. I think it's really, really cool. It's something that, we haven't ever really talked about on here, so it's like getting back to a little bit of the background of how one even goes about doing something like
Yeah,
this, I think is a really, really big and really cool takeaway. Um, did
yeah.
you have, so a after you finished the master's degree, or I guess enduring to, a controversial question, do you have a particular language that you like to code in?
Oh, yes. Okay. All right. And I know people are going to, I will, I am very, okay. So I'm going to take all of my years of experience from coding and bring it on to things. And I'll tell you the ones that I love and the ones that I hate. First and foremost, I hate MATLAB. I hate MATLAB so much. Why do I hate MATLAB? Because it's overpriced. They know that they have a good product and they tack so many different things to be able to do a stupid standard deviation on MATLAB, you need to spend $200 for a license, for a statistics license. I could do it in R. Don't spend. I'm sorry, MATLAB, but like get your stuff together. Stop charging people so much money for an application that I could do for a free application using R or Python. Like, come on. Uh, now, I will
Is
say,
it multiple licenses for different things within the program as well?
yes! Yes! And you even have, like, the base license, which is already expensive, and it's like,
The
ugh.
statistical pack, oh, yikes, alright. See,
I
that makes it
really
far
hope you're not
worse.
sponsored by MATLAB. But, like, I kind of feel like I want to look up these numbers because it's just like absolutely ridiculous, like how expensive it is. They even have like an ODE entire thing, but like their products are so expensive. So Base Lab MATLAB is, I think you can actually maybe get this one for, oh no, you can't view pricing. Oh my God. It's $1,000 a year for baseline MATLAB.
Wow.
Did not expect that.
I feel like it's gone up. I feel like it's gone up.
Well, okay, for students, you can get it for $100. Like, I'm sorry, but that's so terrible. I had to like code in MATLAB when I was in school. Like, there were some teachers who forced us to code in MATLAB, and I hated it. So and then a lot of people within just forever a student, right? Ultra. And then within kind of like the math realm and like statistics and stuff like that, there are kind of two dividing programs that people really, really, really like and hate. And I will tell you, it's there's R and R Studio and Python. All right. And I know that I saw people already talking in your chat about the love of these. I personally love R for statistics and I love Python for machine learning because statistics in R is way better. I'm sorry. I don't really it's just way better. The method of using statistics within R is like such a better language that is just so much more fluid. It has a much better way of doing any sort of randomization and everything like that. And ggplot makes me swoon so hard. I love ggplot. I love like using that package. The other thing is I think that R is much more beginner friendly. Um, hey, do not joke. Do not take away my GG plot. I love me some GG plot. But then on the other side, I do think that Python has a lot of really positive things. I love their pandas package. I think it's fantastic for data manipulation. I also think that it's so easy to do any sort of machine learning techniques and to be able to quickly get your statistics and like your knowledge on being able to actually provide any sort of data and being able to provide inference into any sort of into that kind of lens. I will say that for mathematical modeling, I do also prefer Python. I do prefer R. So yeah.
And that's my experience too for stats, modeling stuff, R, but for any machine learning, always go on the Python route.
Exactly, exactly. So, and it's like I feel like people are so divided on it, and I think that they're both great programs. More importantly, they're both free programs. and like let's praise the free programming and the open source languages that people have actually created and spent time with. Like I've created R packages before, and like it's so nice that there's communities that love these free resources that people can actually learn coding, ingest it, and be excited about it in a multitudes of ways rather than us just sitting here and like having to pay $1,000 for a stupid license that doesn't even include statistics licenses.
That is really cool that you made the R packages though. Just to ask
Oh yeah,
what
I
were
love
the R
coding.
what were the like the R packages doing? Like just one of the
Mm.
examples.
Oh, I did one. Within okay, a little bit about my actual career now. I worked in finance for 5 years. Yes, I worked in finance as a quantitative analyst for 5 years. And for the last 3 years, I've been a data scientist in a big tech company, whom's name I will not be sharing. Sorry.
No, 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 no.
Uh, so within finance, I used R a lot more than I used Python because we just didn't have the infrastructure for Python. And I did a lot more statistics within and predictive analytics in terms of like time series analysis and those kind of things within R. I've made a couple of packages. A couple of them were designed for back testing. So basically, and what that is, for those who don't know, is basically going back in time, seeing what happens if we were to change parameters to basically conclude, to be able to help give validity to a hypothesis, or to like if we had done something different, how it would have turned out. Great example of this, say that we wanted to change an investment plan, and we wanted to change our holdings and specific things. Backtesting gives you the ability to say like, what would the performance been had our holdings been XYZ instead of what it currently is. So you actually have a comparison baseline with actually being able to prove past like what happened in the background. Just as an example. Like there's
Is
so
it
much more that
almost
you can
like
do with it.
a hindsight lens where you can look back and you're like, this is what we have now, this is how we started. If we had diverged earlier on, what we could have had now, and then you can build your model
Yes,
because
exactly.
you know the end result of at least one of the pathways.
Exactly, exactly. I think I
Cool.
had a conversation with somebody else about this recently, about the fact that like how do you be able to have a baseline and establish like that something actually works, and things like back testing are very helpful for being able to be like, okay, like now that I have my current knowledge about where things are. It's the same way that you do it in predictive analytics. Like in predictive analytics, whenever we do something, we're always looking at the current set of data or some sort of data that we already know a baseline of, to be able to actually apply our model onto, to say like, this is our testing set. How does it fare if we were to tune this model and apply the testing set onto our tuned model? um, Backtesting does the exact same thing. We already know what's going to happen. How well does it do, or how well does it stand up if I were to change XYZ things? Or how well, like, what would it look like? Yeah.
That's a
Does
really
that make
cool
sense?
method, and it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the financial career that you had, the master's degree that you were working on kind of really set you up for that pathway. It seems like all the predictive stuff that you had worked on kind of seems to have
Yeah.
funneled into the financial career as well.
A little bit. Yeah. Yeah. Kind of cool. I like
Yeah.
it.
Did you have a favorite project in the financial side of things?
So there's a couple of things that I really enjoyed working on, but I think the problem that I had with the finance industry was the fact that it was extremely misogynistic. So I dealt with a lot of like misogyny in finance. Uh, which is why I got out. But there was a couple of things that I was really, really proud of being able to do. So one of the things that I did was I worked directly under a portfolio manager for some time, who hated me because I was a woman. Uh, and during that time, there was a few things that I was really proud of that I did, that like I did not get credit for, but it's fine. A couple of them was actually doing some actually creating some testing on how like how we could potentially find tunes within the market to be able to see whether or not like we should sell specific stocks and stuff like that, because the portfolio manager that I was in actually did like stock selling and stuff like that, not buying so much, but they did sells. So I helped with finding tuning the mark tuning like different finding different areas in which we should actually sell based off of what kind of category a stock was in. Didn't work a lot, but it worked sometimes and it was kind of cool. If you guys don't know, the market is really volatile and it's really crazy. And I was dealing with like brand new stocks and which are like extremely volatile. But like it's kind of cool. Like that was really really fun because it wasn't like you don't take like stock prices to be able to do that. You do like market movements within things like how the rates are moving and stuff like that to be able to find like kind of indicators of when are some good times to sell specific stock types. And that was kind of cool.
Yeah, at the beginning of the stream, you mentioned that there's jokes on us. We can't actually predict the stock market, but it's really cool that the tool that you were building at least had the ability, right? That sometimes it was getting it right, and especially like you were saying with new stocks too, where it's like you have no idea how it's going to perform. It's really cool that you're able to
Yeah.
account for all the different variables, and then just like even sometimes getting it to work. Like that's really really cool.
It made me really happy when it actually worked, and then my boss would be like, "Well, why didn't it work this time?" And I'd be like, "'Cause it's a predictive model."
It's supposed to
Like,
work
we
every
use
time,
it
right?
so
With no problem.
yeah, I love when people turn to me and they're like, so when you do analysis within creating models and creating stuff like that, obviously there's an ability to actually create a indicator of how well your model or your will perform. And I'm saying model loosely because of the fact that each type of algorithm or whatever you're doing to create these kind of these formulas are going to have different ways of sharing exactly what is going to be a good indicator for a model. But not only that, what is good is going to vary between industries. So, a great example of this is the fact that within finance, so with if you were to just do like a mx plus y kind of linear model, a good r score, which is one of the or r squared, which is one of the ways of actually measuring your model performance, a good one is like 30, and most people would be like, no, that's terrible.
Yeah.
But in finance specifically, that's actually pretty good.
And again, going back to how you said it's so hard to predict.
It's extremely hard to predict. Exactly. So I was joking because like on Tofu stream, I kept saying like it's all about perception, like so many times. And it's so true about how perception really changes your assumptions, your understanding, your like your nuances within whatever you're doing for math. So
Right, and especially like in this the whole like financial bubble that you're working under, what the goal is and how you're saying like what even defines as a good result is different in different industries. I can imagine even like the new stocks. Like if you're modeling against a competitor that you're trying to outcompete, then the good is defined even differently. So like
yep.
it just speaks
Yep.
to the beauty of honestly your brain, of how you're able to think about these things because these aren't necessarily straightforward scenarios that be playing out, much less building a model off of.
No, no, and it's, definitely hard, and it's never I think the biggest thing that people fear about science, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, since, you are SciAnts, but, um, I find that the biggest thing that people struggle with within science is the fact that they're so afraid to be wrong, and I feel as though so often in science, in math, and all of these things, there's going to be a high likelihood you're gonna be wrong in something. Like we all mess up. Nobody's perfect, and that's part of what research is, and part of what is beautiful about STEM is the fact that things are constantly changing, things are constantly evolving, and new information is coming out regularly, and we're going to be wrong in some things. And it's not about and like if you aren't trying something because you're afraid to be wrong, I implore you to stop and just do it because then you're really going to excel and really enjoy what you're doing. So, yeah.
I mean, you're not the only person who's echoed that sentiment, and I 100% agree with you. It's being wrong fearlessly is a benefit because you're gonna learn and you're gonna figure out a way that it doesn't work, and that's important information that someone will need to know down the line as well.
Yeah, yeah. With a caveat that it's okay when you're wrong and just make sure that you stand up for like, you actually can articulate that, like, you are wrong. Like, it's not a bad thing.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Um, So it sounds like the financial circuit was not a good place to necessarily be, especially if you're a woman in STEM. How did you navigate it so that you were able to stay in STEM? Because that's something that is an issue, right? The retention is an issue, especially because of
It is.
misogyny or any other kind of biases that are brought into these workplaces. I would
It is.
something to celebrate you for continuing on. But how did you
Thank
like?
you.
What did you find as, like, the mechanism through which, like, that kept you going to a new position, right? And then
Yeah.
staying in the mathematics. And again, y'all celebrate Curly for the because it's huge. It's like the loss of incredible talent is immense because of these biases, and that's one of the reasons why it's important to have these discussions.
Yeah. So I will say, like, I actually was part of a amazing organization that actually helps with it's a headhunter that helps helps women, BIPOC and veterans find jobs within the tech industry. So they try to help anybody who has kind of like a harder ability to get into workplaces, learn how to interview, how to sell yourself, how to actually connect to people, and to the point where they actually work together with different companies in the tech industry to be able to find resources. So I worked with them for about a year before I found my current job. But I think that for me, it was one of those things where it's just like I just wanted to do something different. I just wanted to push forward. And I love math so much that I didn't want to give it up. And honestly, I think that it's to be a little bit vulnerable right now. I didn't know what else to do. Like, this has been my entire life. This has been my entire career. I don't even know where I would go if I decided like one day I don't want to do math anymore. Like, I honestly have had that conversation in my head about like what would I do with myself? Like, not to call out people like Ultra is insane. Like, her knowledge about biology and everything is so insanely amazing, and she's been able to apply it in different lenses where it's like, yeah, I can do a lot with math, but I also don't I feel like I don't know what else I would do. Like, I just don't. So and I will tell you, like, it's definitely been it was a really hard thing for me to keep going and keep pushing forward, and even now, I still deal with misogyny within the tech industry. But what keeps me going now, fortunately, is I have an amazing boss that stands up for me. Like, it's the reason why I've kept my job. Like, I my boss is awesome. Like, he stands up for people. He acknowledges when he's wrong. He's extremely intelligent and he's extremely knowledgeable about different things. He really really cares about getting people to succeed in whatever they want to do, and like really is just a champion for people, and it's amazing. And so he's the reason why I've stayed in my position as long as I have.
Do you have any advice for other women in STEM who might be struggling in a similar method? Like,
Yeah.
I know it's an
Uh,
extremely hard question,
no, it's
because it's
not.
just I don't know how you fight a system with just an like easy, straightforward advice. But like, what advice would you give people about a way of maybe persevering through it?
I think a couple of things. First and foremost, make sure burnout is really hard, and I think that like that's a big problem that happens a lot of the times when people are faced with this kind of struggle, especially within the STEM industry. Is that I'll tell you right now. Like, I was talking to my coworker, and there's a lot of times that even with my job right now where I still have to prove myself. And I have 8 years of experience. I have 8 years of work experience. Like, there's no reason why I should still have to be proving myself. But alas, I do. And it gets really tiring. What I would recommend everybody doing is one, your work is not your life. Take time to step away from work so that way you can actually do things that you enjoy. This mentality of maintaining this 9 to 5 stuff and like having to go above and beyond and blah, 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 blah. That is like so ingrained within the corporate society. It's just something that I cannot, I do not condone. I feel as though we need to make sure that we are working to live, not living to work. Like so I think that first and foremost. Second of all, I would say make sure that you have champions on your side. So even when I was in within finance, and we were dealing with that, I had a lot of women as a support network who would sit there and we had regular meetings where we talked about things, we talked about things that we were experiencing, and we came together to see how we could make things better. And in some ways, we worked together to lift each other up, to do things and to like make sure that we were being heard and not gaslit into thinking that we're not what our concerns are not valid, which is a really 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 big concern by the way
Yeah.
within STEM, within like being able to actually articulate some of the things that we deal with as women in tech and women in STEM, is that we get gaslit a lot that like either we're the problem or there is no problem or these kind of things, and I think that's the hardest part. And that's another part that gets really tiring to deal with. So having women surrounding you with like minds and to support you so that way you're not alone and you're not sitting there, it brings champions in. I would also say that like generally if you can and if you have a good manager, like it really does make a world of difference. Like somebody who is higher than you who can support you in some sort of things. It doesn't even need to be your manager. If it's somebody who is just like a little bit higher ranked than you that you can feel like you can connect with to build in that positive relationship, so beneficial, so important to be able to have that, to have somebody on your side as you're going through some of these things. And if you can't find that, I know this is really hard, but I think that's an indication of you're not supposed to be there.
I think that's very soundly and beautifully put together, Curly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
on a maybe lighter and happier note, you do things that are outside of mathematics that you're very passionate about. How did you
I
get into
do?
streaming?
Oh my god, okay. Okay, so, my actually, I didn't know about Twitch until 2022. How long has my thing been around? I actually, started Twitch because my husband turned to me one day and was like my actual name's Amanda. I don't really care if people know about that. He was like, "Amanda, I hate my job. I don't wanna do this anymore. Like, I just wanna quit and become a full-time streamer." I was like, "Okay, before you jump on that horse and before you just quit your job and do a full-time streamer, let's talk about this." Because he had this whole entire plan about, creating this entire gaming network with one of his friends and stuff like that. I was like, "That's great. That's cool. Whatever. Is this going to be feasible is something that I need you to figure out before you do so." So I turned to him and I was like, "If you can make $1,000 a month consistently, you can quit your job." Like that's all I wanted him to do. Like just this much money per month consistently, you can quit your job. So he started on Twitch. And I remember his first stream. He stared at the camera and he was so shy. It was adorable. He didn't say anything. And I was like, "True, you have to talk to the camera." um, and slowly he was getting it. He was really loving it. And I was always in his streams. I was always trying to help him out. I was always trying to like help him like do some of the back end things to make it easier for him and to be able to make it so it's a kind of enjoyable and stuff like that. And so as he was doing all of that, I was like building connections in the background as well, like and just enjoying the space itself. And just I was just like a regular chatter. I was just enjoying my time on Twitch. So then one day his community who like knew me really well because he shared like I was always there. They said that he Drew needed to do some work stuff and I had off that day, so I took over his stream and I streamed for him that day. That day, I doubled his viewer count, and, like, I think he got the highest viewer count he's ever gotten, and then on top of it, he got more follows in a stream than he'd ever received before. And so I literally was just like, "This is fun. I enjoy this." And about, I would say, like, a month or 2 later, I started streaming, because we moved actually. I wasn't actually going to do it. I wasn't going to start streaming, but we ended up moving, for my job, which took me away from my ability to perform with a dance company, and I needed to find something to fill a little bit of that gap. And I was like, you know what? Streaming was fun. Maybe if I devote 1 day a week to stream so I can actually play games because I never had enough time to, because I was always in a dance studio. I was always doing, or I was doing research for work or something like that. So I never had enough time to be able to do it. And I was like, 1 day a week, I'm going to spend that time and I'm going to devote it to playing games. 1 day turned into 2 days, which turned into 3 days, which turned into where I am now.
So
So yes, I love streaming. It's amazing.
it became the new creative outlet, right?
Basically, yeah, yeah,
Nice.
that's exactly what it did. It became the creative outlet that was just more fun, and just, like, I got to make some, like, genuinely wonderful connections with people like you, and, uh, and so many other wonderful people on Twitch, and it's just been, I've really loved my time here and my time enjoying all of this, and I would never give it up for the world, so it's just so great and so wonderful.
Yeah, I've as a fan, I've loved seeing the growth of your channel and the growth of the games and the cosplays that you do. Like the one yesterday again for Monster Hunter was just absolute fire. Like it's just they're just
Thank
getting so
you.
cooler and cooler, and it's just really cool to see the again the evolution of the stream and how it's becoming like a
Thank
bigger and
you.
bigger thing. And I think you're doing an incredible job at that as well.
That means a lot. That means a lot. Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where it's like I think that we all have a little bit of an imposter syndrome of, is this real? Like, I only started like less than 3 years ago. Like my 3 year anniversary is in May. Like, just to put that out there. I haven't been on the platform that long.
And yet, Twitch partner, member of women's guild and Unity guilds, like attending TwitchCon, big deal, Curly.
Thank you.
So
um,
as
yeah,
we're
no,
as
thank
we're
you. That means
absolutely no, absolutely. One of the great parts about being able to organize this Women in STEM series, we got to pick people I really look up to, and you're one of those people,
oh,
especially with like the
means a lot.
expertise in the
Thank you.
mathematics, but also the streaming and how you do things. Is just truly you are an inspiration. And thank you so much for sharing the story because I know there's elements too that's not easy to share. And my hope is that
No.
from this opening up that someone will see and hear your story and look at you as you are in fact a role model and that they can
Oh,
look up
thank
to you
you.
on these stories because you are actively fighting for women in STEM, which is incredible, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you. That beats a lot. No, I wish that more women did STEM, and I wish that people loved things like math and science and all these other things more. Because I think it's so beautiful and it's so amazing. And I think that like women have such a curiosity about them. Not that I don't think that men do, but like in this space, I think that women have such a wonderful sense of like exploration. And they can really thrive in that environment.
One question that we've been asking all of our guests that I'd like to pose to you too as well, I think it's a perfect time to ask is
Okay.
what does it mean to you to be a woman in STEM?
Ooh, that's a really, really good question. I'm going to preface that answer with a couple of things. First and foremost, I will say that I want to advocate for the fact that during my time as a woman in STEM, I've dealt with a lot of people who have either been, even women who have either gotten really nasty towards other women within STEM. And because of the fact that they experienced negativity. And so in their mind, they feel as though you need to experience it as well. I think we're at an age and I think we're at a time within STEM and within our society that it is so important, especially as a woman in STEM, to be a role model and to uplift people, not to drag them down. And I think in that case, we can universally say that people in STEM need to sit there and actually uplift others. And I think that is so important as being a woman in STEM to sit there and to help guide the generation and the next generation into becoming more and more stable, more confident, so that way they can continue to exceed. I mean, I think we're in a world where there's so much going on with advancements within technology, within advancements within sciences and stuff like that, that there's so much to explore. There's so much to understand. And if we keep putting people down, we're going to be further behind the eight ball. So I feel as though we need to I think right now it's the time for us to uplift and uphold women in STEM. And as a woman in STEM, I hope that I can actually be kind of that help where people can ask me to be. I hope that I can actually sit there and help raise other people up, through things like mentorships, through things like just these kind of conversations. So I think that that's important. I think it's really, really exceptionally important that we raise people up. And I say people, I think that women in STEM especially, but I think people in general, I think we need to raise those people up so that way they feel as though there's enough negativity in the world. We need to stop that. We need to help people get higher and higher and higher.
Curly, thank you so very much. Incredible
Aw.
mathematician, inspirational woman in STEM. There's a reason why she's part of the Women's Guild. There's a reason why she's going to be the next hottest thing on Twitch as she rises through the ranks. Curly, truly, thank you
I think there's
for your time, everything today. Is